They say
monsters
don't
exist.
But what if I told you they walk among us in plain sight? Imagine the chill creeping down your spine when the unsettling sensation of eyes boring into you from the shadows. Yet, when you turn, nobody is there. Picture yourself in a crowded grocery store, heart racing, as an inexplicable dread clings to you like a dark, dark cloud. Monsters are real. This is American Whiskey, and every Friday we get together for Sip and Solve, where we dive into the bone-chilling tales that remind us of darkness lurks just beneath the surface. If you're looking for a unique wine experience, check out Burned Out Winery. Founded by a team of siblings who turned their passion for winemaking into a thriving business. They focus on crafting exceptional small batch wines from Moscato to tart cherry and spiced apple to their delightful sangrias. There's something for everyone. Each bottle tells a story, complete with a creative name that reflects their journey. Their wines are not only fantastic, but they're also affordable, making them a great choice for any occasion. You can easily order online at burnedoutwinery.com or connect with them on Facebook. They deliver. Whether you're local or out of state, they'll ship right to your front door. Support this hardworking team and savor the taste of Burned Out Winery. This is Big Sturg with American Whiskey. Welcome to American Whiskey Sip and Solve. It is Friday. Every Friday we do a mystery sip and solve. And we like to blend the rich flavors of whiskey with an intriguing story of America's darkest moments or darkest mysteries. I'm your host, Big Sturg. And alongside of me is my trusty best friend in the whole entire world, Justice League. Justice League, you do all the work. So introduce our guest host today.
So I believe we have two guest hosts here tonight. We have one in the background modeling for us, and she calls her Mama.
Just the mamas.
And then we have the one and only MyKala Stinson.
Hi. And also, Sturg, I thought I was your best friend in the whole wide world.
Oh,
like that intro just really cut deep, man.
Well, I'll be honest. He got me on there. Yeah. So.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I understand.
Mistake, though.
For posterity's sake, you gotta.
I made two mistakes. I forgot to push record. Remember, I always give Levi the.
You better go fucking press record. And while he's doing that, everyone, what are we sipping on?
Currently, I am sipping on Pelican Brewing's Beak Breaker Double IPA.
Ooh, is it delicious?
It is really delicious. Sometimes double IPAs can be kind of like, I don't mind astringent or like really hoppy beers, but sometimes it's just hoppy for the sake of being hoppy. But this one is pretty, like, really well balanced and like 9%, but does not drink like it. So we're gonna get a little loose by the end of this.
Listen, Big Easy, I know you're here from MyKala. Pop that on the screen.
Already did.
That's hilarious. We're okay with that, Big Easy. Yes, I like it. I like a double IPA A lot of people don't like that super hoppy flavor, but I'm a big fan of it. So
I love it.
Sturg, it's been a while since you had their fridge of IPAs.
So when we'll do it real fast. We'll talk about it because when he first started here, I was a huge nothing but IPA drinker, and I got it from like New York, and just I was really a big fan. And
it was Uncle Joey. I couldn't stand IPAs.
Uncle Joey drank the shit out of them.
Yeah,
but I was a big fan of them. So tonight I have figured out my new favorite whiskey, and we never do this. Horse soldier whiskey. I've never had it. Phil got conned into buying it the one time with us. It's absolutely delicious. And Natty Light.
I am drinking Childcare from our own Burnout Winery. Those are our homies. And then a Natty Light.
I just Biggie's ask, you ever distill an IPA? Yes, I have. It's the beer schnapps that we talked about on the last Tuesday show that I was on.
Yeah, easy. Pay attention. I bought one of them.
Episode.
Yeah, I was like, it's coming to Ohio. Don't you worry about that. But we used our brandy column, so we kind of distilled it in an eau de vie style. So the hop flavor was more of like an aromatic note instead of like a really in-your-face punchy note. And then it was aged in rye whiskey barrels. So like the spirit itself is kind of like, you're right, like it is intense. Oh, Lady Meow. Are you Lady Meowington? Yes, you are.
I was about to say that'll be a comment we hit on before, so we dive right into this.
Yeah, Easy said his memory is as long as his wong. It's very short. So, guys, let's pour a glass of your favorite whiskey, or a bourbon or a beer, a wine. We love wine. As you can see, our Burned Out Winery merch over here. And those are our favorite people in the world. If you like wine, they've got every wine. Dylan, you're sipping on Burned Out Winery tonight out of the bottle.
Childcare.
So, guys, pour yourself that glass.
Or drink out of the bottle.
And let's unravel the twisted tale of the one and only Jeffrey Dahmer. He was born on May 21st, 1960 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dahmer's early years were marked by, instability. His parents, Joyce and Lionel Dahmer, pretty much had a shitty relationship. Joyce was reportedly anxious and emotional and super unstable, spending significant amount of time in the hospital during Dahmer's childhood, while Lionel was often absent due to his work as a chemist. And as a child, Dahmer had, he was described as an odd guy, odd little fellow. Okay,
like an outcast,
and a little bit of an outcast. He was, I guess, introverted. He was fascinated with dead animals. He would actually collect roadkill with his dad and dissect them in the backyard. And there was like a little shed back there, if I remember correct, that he would dissect him.
His dad being a chemist and seeing how he was fascinated with roadkill, I believe it started off as a project. He got him a low-grade acid so he could see what that does to a body, and then he could see the bones afterwards, and Dahmer eventually kept asking for stronger and stronger acid.
Right. And,
that became a big part of his, MO is just being able to, cleave the flesh off of the bones of his victims and, get to what lies beneath.
And it sounds like, MyKala, this is where it started, that fascination of it, right?
Well, isn't that something that is very common between either serial killers or school shooters and people like that? They start with animals.
Think so.
Like a psychopathic kind of disconnect from what is essentially a helpless creature, and to exert your power over that creature to the point of extinguishing its life is one of the kind of thrills that serial killers and folks will chase.
Yeah, I mean, you say thrills. I think it had 100% a thrill, but I think it has something to do with an animal it's hard for them to protect themselves against humans.
Yeah.
And then
for sure.
slowly people develop that need for more because it's not easy for them.
Yeah, the feeling of kind of inherent helplessness from an animal, but you can only get, or I guess they.
You know what's intriguing about Jeff, though, was the fact that I call him Jeff like I know him. Jeffrey Dahmer.
Old Jeff.
Yeah. The thing about little Jeffy was it started with dead animals, right? It wasn't the fact that he liked to kill because it started with the
Oh,
dead
true.
animals. You know,
Yeah, almost like the
he wasn't
taxidermy.
exactly, MyKala. He wasn't looking for that the struggleness. I think it started just out of curiosity, and I don't know if anything was shitty there, but the morbid curiosity hinted at a dark interest that would later
Mhm.
spiral out of control, right? And we can fast forward a little bit here. During his his middle school years, Dahmer faced a ton of bullying. We were just talking about that.
Yep.
With further alienated from his peers. He really became a social outcast. And after sitting alone at lunch and gradually withdrawing from social interactions,
Mhm.
this growing sense of the isolation would become a significant factor of this development because you know it's, he just school is a super big part of development, right? Like middle school, elementary school, those years are so important. And as he transitioned into high school, Dahmer's behavior became increasingly erratic. He struggled academically, and by his senior year, believe this or not, he was drinking heavily. And when I mean heavily, I'm talking he would show up to school with a beer and crack it in the middle of class.
Which
Mhm.
that ties into his military connection
It
too.
does. It
Yeah.
does. His alcohol abuse, it becomes a coping mechanism, right? For his loneliness and his despair. Easy just hit it in the comments. I
Mhm.
believe all young boys go through a phase about life, death, and how body works. This is where the parents play a big part in helping a boy grow into solid men. And it's true. There's nothing wrong, I don't think, in his early parts of wanting to get the roadkill.
No.
Interested in, the anatomy of this. I don't
Mhm.
think there's anything wrong there.
No, because that's like science class when you're dissecting an animal.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
pigs, the fetal pigs.
Yeah. I mean,
My
everyone goes through that, so it's not weird for there be a kid or two that loves doing that.
I enjoyed it, to be honest with you. It was very intriguing and interesting, but I don't think that makes the killer. I think what Easy said here,
Right.
MyKala, is big. And,
Mhm.
and I think we saw that I just said a few minutes ago, where the fact that he wasn't murdering animals, right? Innocent animals at first, right? He
Yeah,
would
it was just fiddling with, like, dead bodies.
exactly. And so, but I think this kind of shaped his loneliness. It kind of filled the cup for him, this alcohol, and it causes issues. I mean, we're all in the alcohol business, right?
Yeah.
And we know that it can be a coping mechanism. It can be good,
Mm.
it can be bad. But he does end up graduating in 1978, and after high school, during high school, he didn't, you know, help himself by the way he acted. There was at one point
Mhm.
there was a person remodeling the house, and he kind of had a what was the
He
he had scoliosis or something, and
he was mocking him, making fun of him to the point where his mom actually reprimanded him,
yeah,
and it was just a guy there to remodel the house.
right. And he would go to school acting like that guy and trying to fit in and just do weird things, and that kind of shaped how he would go after high school. And Dahmer actually attended Ohio State University.
Which isn't easy.
It's not, but his dad is a
No.
chemist, and well-known guy. He was able to help him get into Ohio State. No, it's to try to help him get his life on track. I assume that his dad probably saw that outcastness, and is that a word? I don't know.
Yeah,
But
the
That
kind of almost othering, I think it would be, like, simultaneously, like, interesting, but also terrifying to be a parent of someone who's developing these tendencies
yes.
or, like, these inclinations. Like, can you imagine being the one who has to be like, "This fuck ooh, that's my kid, and you wanna what?"
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, I can't imagine the pressure of that, and I think kind of forcing him or not to skip ahead, but, like, forcing him
You're
into
fine.
the military, like,
Yes, yes.
because college didn't work out, he's just like his parents were like, "Please, dear God, like, fucking get your
get
life
some
on track, like,
structure.
be
Well,
normal,"
but it
like
was interesting though because he didn't have the structure, right? Mom ended up leaving
yeah,
him. He was in high school by himself in a
Dad was
house.
always
Dad
gone.
dad was living in a hotel because they were getting a divorce. And
yep,
again, Easy with the good comments here. not feeling love during, puberty from the parents, namely the mom, goes a long way in the psychological development. But to counteract that, I would say, a lot of people go through things and don't murder 17 innocent people, right?
True. I had a shit mom and I have murdered no people.
Yeah, I'm adopted. I had a shitty first 10 years of my life and I didn't murder anybody, right? So, but again, it's everyone's different. And he ends up dropping out of Ohio State, like we said, just after one semester, guys. He was there, he had no direction, and it was evident. And so MyKala just hit it. He enlisted in the military. I think it was more of his dad's. He said, "You're going or you're not getting shit from us."
Yeah,
And
you're going or you're fucking heading out.
100%. And that was in 1979. He actually, I find this interesting, and I wonder if this is kind of where this mentality kind of started for him. He was serving as a combat medic. But once again,
which
guys,
is also so crazy given what he's done in the future. Be like, sure, let me just put the tools to understand the bits of human beings in the hands of this emotionally traumatized psychopath.
Yeah, it's interesting because how many psychopaths are really in the world that don't act their whole life, right?
Right.
They're able, have the love of a caring family, and they're able to get the help. I mean, all of us have issues, right? But his time in the army was, just like everything else, including his love from his parents and high school, middle school, it was short lived. He was discharged. He was
honorably discharged because he was drunk all the time. Yeah. Honorably discharged. I saw one thing that was the army didn't think that the issues that led to his discharge would impact him in his civilian life.
But what's interesting, there was actually a guy that he served with that claims that he was drugged and raped by Dahmer. But he was honorably discharged for being an alcoholic.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And what's crazy about that is back then, the United States military didn't have a huge alcohol dependency or any dependency agencies that looked out for them like we do these days. And what a lot of people don't know, which I'm sorry if I'm shitting on anyone's parade with this, is he actually got into some hot water and had sexual misconduct with two guys that he was stationed with.
I did not know that.
That's where people started looking at him weird.
So Megan Stinson says that he got medically discharged.
It still back then fell under honorable discharge.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the alcoholism.
Yeah.
This is a disease.
Today, if you get other than honorable, it states that it was other than honorable discharge, but it was listed as honorable.
Right.
Got it.
Now so he's returning to Ohio, and this is when it hits a dark turn. But before we do that, I would like to, backtrack a little bit. And let's go back to high school a little bit, okay? 1978. He committed his first murder. He lures Stephen Hicks, and I'm going to let you guys from here. Let's talk about what these murders were. Let's talk about, the 17 murders, and I'm going to let you guys have it.
So shortly after graduating high school, he graduated high school in May of 1978. His first victim was Stephen Hicks at the age of 18 on June 18th, 1978. He lured Stephen Hicks into his family home after picking him up hitchhiking. They were working out, lifting weights, just having a good time when Dahmer decided he was going to hit him with the weights. Netflix, what was that called, MyKala? Was it
Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story.
It depicts Dahmer kiss the corpse while Dahmer lived a fantasy of having sex with the dead body. Dahmer buried Hicks, but later dug him up to get rid of evidence. He used acid, which he did with the animals before, crushing the bones to later be scattered in the woods.
Well, and one of the things, he dismembered him and buried him, and then later, dug him up, and then did the he was like, that's not enough. And then, he's almost refining his kind of method of disposal, where I feel like after the first murder, you almost have like a bit of a panic moment of like, fuck, I gotta bury this. But then, like, through working with his dad, the chemist, and all of these like dead animals, it's like, no, I know how to properly dispose of things. And like, even just monitoring the dissolving of the flesh and the like all of that and seeing that and then reburying it and then like pulverizing all of the bones, like
Yes.
he is setting up his need for control and his need to like basically shed his victim of everything that makes them human, so then they just become bones and bits that he
Right.
then crushes and does away with.
And it's unconfirmed, but there are a bunch of experts out there that say this is something Dahmer had dreamed and tried to do when he was still in high school, but
Mhm.
he had either one didn't have the nerve to do it or didn't have the right opportunity.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the second one, Michaela?
Yeah. So after his like first victim being, I think it was like 3 weeks after graduating, like not even a full month
Yes.
of becoming like an adult. So his second victim comes almost 10 years. So he's already tried to go to college, dropped out, went into the military, got discharged, and now comes Stephen. I'm going to mispronounce his name. Tolme? I think it's Stephen Tolme. Tuomi or Tolme. But he. Sorry, I lost my notes. Fuck. Da-da-da-da.
So, finding her place. If anyone's
Yes.
wondering why he waited 10 to 11 years, it's because with his first victim, he almost got caught by the police when he was taking the body, and it really scared the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm. Like, I can't imagine. I mean, one, because I won't kill anyone and transport their remains in my car, but just like the absolute puckering of butthole that comes from like getting stopped on a just random traffic stop and like, nope,
Having a body in
nobody
the
here but us bodies. So at this point in his life, about like 9, 10 years, Dahmer had been sent to live with his grandma because she was the only member of his family that showed him affection, and that affection was reciprocated in whatever way he could actually like give affection. She was the only one that he listened to or at least respected. So he's living with his grandma at this point. He's trying to find jobs, getting fired all the time for being like drunk on the job or just like not fucking doing the job.
Seems like a
But
common thing with him being drunk.
yeah, like being in the alcohol industry, I can definitely, and coming from a family of people who have like alcohol addiction problems, I drink less now that I distill alcohol than I did when I didn't. Because it's like all about the state of mind of like, oh, I love this job. Like I'm happy and fulfilled. So I don't need to go to this coping mechanism. But if I never had set structure or a like family group that loved me, then I feel like it would be a vastly different story.
Right.
So Dahmer ended up meeting Stephen Ptolemy, who was 24 at the time, and took it. Met him at a bar and then took him back to the Ambassador Hotel. They ended up fooling around for a little bit, and Dahmer has always said that he didn't intend, like, it didn't intend to kill Steven. He just woke up to him dead in bed next to him. His chest was crushed in and he was heavily bruised. And Dahmer's like fists and forearms were also heavily bruised. So he obviously needed to dispose of the remains. So he bought a suitcase and then brought the remains back to his grandma's house. He dismembered the body and disposed of everything except for the head, which he ended up keeping. He had it wrapped in a blanket for about 2 weeks. And then that's the point where he started experimenting with trying to boil it with an industrial detergent and bleach in order to just keep the skull, which they didn't touch on as much in the Netflix documentary, but he would like look at and touch the skull while he was masturbating. So it was like a sexual stimulus for him. But eventually the skull was too brittle from the intensity of the chemicals that he used. And so it started breaking. So he ended up pulverizing it and just like getting rid of it.
And what's crazy to me about this whole killing was when he packed him in the suitcase, dismembered him, and put him in the suitcase. He actually had the taxi driver help him put
Oh
the
my God.
suitcase
Yes.
in the vehicle.
Yes.
And from what I've read, obviously we can't go back and verify,
Right.
is the taxi driver questioned the weight and the smell,
Mm-hmm.
and he just laughed it off like, "Yeah, I have a body in there,"
Yeah, don't worry
and
about
then
it.
took it to his grandmother's.
Yeah, to his grandma's house. The number of dead bodies that pass through that poor old lady's house is honestly staggering.
So after that, we have James. I'm going to butcher this last name too. I'm going to say Doxeter. He was the youngest of all the victims. He was 14 years old, and this was on January 18th, 1987. He was a runaway from an abusive father, and Dahmer found him outside of Club 219. I'm guessing that's in Florida. Could be wrong. If anyone knows, correct me, please. He offered him cash, which a 14-year-old that just ran away from home probably needs some money. So that's how I'm guessing he lured him in. When they got back to his, pretty sure this is still at his grandmother's back in 87. He gave him sleeping pills and raped him while he was unconscious before killing him. After that, we have Richard Guerrero. There's, unless you have more on this one, I really couldn't find much. He offered him $50 to stay with him at his grandmother's, another
Mm-hmm.
prostitution kind of ring. He drugged him like other victims, strangled him and dismembered him. And the only reason why this was figured out was he was identified from a family photo.
Yeah. Around this time, Dharma was also kind of gaining a reputation at like gay bathhouses and other kind of like lewd spaces where he was using different sleeping pills like triazolam and temazepam and drugging people in the bathhouse and then engaging in acts with them to the point where he was banned from basically every bathhouse in his local area and like was basically 86 from
Yeah.
all of those kind of spaces because he would just like drug and take advantage of his victims while they were unconscious. It's like even outside of just him committing murders, like he was still doing the same thing, but just not murdering. So the kind of like, I guess it would be interesting to be able to ask him, like, when do you, like, what is the impetus that, like, I'm going to kill this person or I'm just going to drug them and be in a sauna?
Right. So after that, we had Anthony Sears, and none of them are good. Don't get me wrong with what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
This one haunts me a little more than the others
Mm-hmm.
because he had sexually assaulted someone. I believe it was in 1988. 13-year-old Somsak. Not even going to try to pronounce that last name. I'm going to butcher the hell out of that.
It's
So
a
it was
rough
2
one.
months prior. So it was early 89. So he sexually assaults a 13-year-old, only gets a year for second-degree sexual assault, and he gets put on work release by the judge.
Yeah.
And while he's on work release, he commits another murder. This one was an aspiring actor, still 26 years old. And what's chilling about this, it shows where his mind is starting to get worse and worse. He kept his genitals and his skull again.
Mm-hmm. He had a really big fascination with like keeping the skull, which I get is like the crown of power. Like if you have someone's head, you literally have them have their head.
Right.
But that kind of being a recurring theme throughout all of his depravity, and having that be a constant thing, like acid, pulverize bones, and also keep the skull. I think this was the first one where he like kept the genitals, which was an interesting diversion. Oh, can't do that when
Are you muted?
I think you're muted. Yeah. I was like, I can hear you through someone else's mic.
Listen, so what I meant, when I was writing the script earlier on my end, I'm like, this dude is cutting dicks off and keeping it. But deep down, part of me is like, dude, go to a sex shop, go to Spencer's, go somewhere where they sell some fucking dildos. You don't got to chop a dick and balls off to enjoy yourself.
He's trying to do a Rasputin, but it's other people's dick instead of his own.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you guys. Keep it rolling.
Oh, no.
Do you want to talk about Raymond?
Yes. So Raymond Smith, a.k.a. Ricky Beats, was murdered on May 20th in 1990. This was the first murder that occurred when Dahmer had moved out of his grandma's house and he was living on his own. Raymond was a sex worker, promised him $50 to pose for some nude photos. He ended up posing nude, but just while dead and not getting the $50.
Yeah.
Yeah. He took super suggestive photos of the corpse and then dismembered and boiled the remains before using the acid to remove the flesh and kept the skull.
Man, this guy with his skulls.
Yeah. He had like a cabinet. I guess that was something that came up. It was just like a cabinet of skulls. And like I have
Kind of
little
like a
displays of like curiosities and like little weird trinkets, but like not fucking human skulls.
Yeah, I agree with that. The next one, I'm hoping you have more. I couldn't really find too much about it. It was
I did
Eddie
get a
Smith.
couple of
This one was a weird one. He was 28 years old. They don't know exactly when, because Dahmer is the one that confessed to this one. He said it was June of 1990. He verified and gave details like some of these other cases, but remains were never found. The only thing that kind of helped his story, which again could be made up from a grieving family member, I believe it was his brother said he received a call and it sounded like Dahmer saying, "You'll never find the body."
Yeah, it was his sister. And it was, "Don't bother looking for your brother. He's dead."
Right.
And then that was the entirety of the phone call. So the only, like, he was a missing person, and the only reason they'd know what happened to him is because Dahmer confessed to it. But yeah, his remains have never been found.
So the next one that there's actually details about is Ernest Miller. He was 22 years old. This happened in September of 1990. They met outside a bookstore in Milwaukee. So, like some of the other victims, he seduced him by money by saying he was going to take pictures and everything. He was drugged and his throat was slit. This one took another weird twist, like some of the other ones, and it shows progression in his killings. He kept his biceps in the freezer. He painted his skull and bleached his skeleton. And then his grandmother received a phone call. Do you have anything else on that one, MyKala?
No. Oh yeah. He did boil the remaining bits into like jelly-like substance, almost like, this is super fucking gross, but like tonkatsu, like ramen broth. He like boiled all of the like cartilage and all of that to like make this like soup.
Man.
Ugh.
No.
No.
So the one after that, this is where his killings start becoming more frequent, was David C. Thomas, 23 years old. And this was shortly after. It was September 24th, 1990. He was a father of a little girl. and he was lured back to Dahmer's apartment and killed. This is one that didn't have a lot of details, but it was another one that happened in his apartment. So I'm just assuming he kept the skull in this one.
Yeah. Well, the next one is Curtis Strader. He met Dahmer standing at a bus stop near Marquette University. He lured Curtis into his apartment with an offer for money, again, posing for nude photos with the added incentive of like sexual intercourse. So it was like, hey, pose nude, and that's the foreplay. But he drugged him as his MO, cuffed his hands, and then strangled him to death with a leather strap. He ended up dismembering Strader, keeping his skull, his hands, and his genitals. And this was when the Polaroid camera that he had purchased when he moved into this apartment, he staged or took photographs at each stage of the dismemberment process. It's like he had documented evidence of him dismembering this poor victim.
Right. So that's where things are about to take another turn for the worse. But before we get to Errol Lindsay, we're going to do a commercial for our good friend Von Davis from Schoolhouse Farms.
Discover the taste of freshness at Schoolhouse Farms. Join Von Davis and Beth Cole, passionate bird watchers and friends from York County, Maine, as they transform their love for nature into a thriving business. Since 2016, they have been dedicated to growing and distributing premium sunflower kernels, oils, gourmet popcorn, and heirloom grain products like corn, flour, and grits. What do they offer? Birdseed suppliers, high quality black oil sunflower seeds for local markets, food retailers, a selection of sunflower oils, roasted kernels, gourmet popcorn, and heirloom cornmeal. Online shoppers enjoy gourmet popcorn and confection sunflower kernels from the comfort of your home. Floral markets, stunning sunflowers for Ohio-based florists. Distillers, specialty grains for brewing and distillation. Popcorn vendors, are you a kettle corn vendor? Talk to Vaughn or Beth about supplying your business with the lowest cost, high quality mushroom popcorn in the industry. Taste the difference. Customers can shop for delicious sunflower kernels, popcorn, flavored oils, and heirloom cornmeal and grits directly on their website or at selected retail stores and farmers markets across Ohio, Indiana, Maine, and New Hampshire. Their name pays tribute to the historic Freysinger School, built in 1862 on Davis Farms property. This one-room schoolhouse has a rich history, having served the community until 1939. Are you ready to connect? If there's an exciting opportunity to discuss, they would love to hear from you. Follow Schoolhouse Farms on Facebook today and become part of the community. This is Big Sturg with American Whiskey.
You have a great voice for ads.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was like, all right. Fucking A, bud.
You're still muted on that one. You keep muting that mic. So,
Okay.
next one is 19-year-old Errol Lindsay. This is where things pour more into the dark side. He drugged and poured acid into a hole in his head, which later people have figured out. Dahmer had an obsession with the medical field, aka his military life, where he felt like he could lobotomize somebody and leave them in like a zombie kind of state where he could do whatever he wanted to do.
Sorry, go ahead.
So all I was going to add to that is he also strangled and dismembered him after pouring acid into him.
Yeah, some of the comments of people who had met Dahmer, it just like regular is a wild word to use for that. But in his sexual encounters, he would be upset when people would move. So his need to exert control extended beyond just being in charge. It was like, I need you to be still. And that's part of where his like necrophiliac tendencies came in, was like, well, if you're dead, you can't move and do what I don't want. And yeah, this, I guess, experiment in trying to chemically lobotomize someone, he drilled a hole in his head and then used a turkey baster to
Yeah.
inject the hydrochloric acid into it. But his hope was to induce a permanent, unresistant, and like fully submissive state where he just wanted like a sex doll, but with a beating heart.
Yeah. And that's pretty sick.
So sick.
Do you want to talk about Anthony?
Yes.
This is Anthony that's scared to get stuffed in a trunk sturgeon.
As long as he doesn't go by Tony. So Anthony Tony Hughes was an aspiring model. He was 31 years old, and Dahmer met him in a nightclub. He once again used the offer of money to pose for photographs to lure people back. Like, I did art in college. Like, I know we paid our live nude models, but like, I never just be like, hey, do you want to come to my apartment and be naked for pictures? Like, that
takes some nerve.
it takes nerve. And also, why would you do that? Like, I'm the person who's in the audience of this movie just screaming like, don't go. Oh, I scrolled down too far. But so he brought him back to his apartment, drugged Hughes, and like to the point of unconsciousness before he once again injected the hydrochloric acid into his skull in an effort to try and do the chemical lobotomization. But in this instance, the skeletal trauma of him like drilling into his head and the acid just killed him straight off. So I guess at least he didn't wake up afterwards, but like this kind of pivot to trying to like, while they are still alive, try and embalm them almost, or just like shut off their humanity so that they're just like this is gross, but like a warm meat sack. Like the pivot to this kind of depravity is wild.
So, if I'm not mistaken here, wasn't this the one that he left the body on the floor for like 3 or 4 days before he decided to dismember him because he felt a connection?
Mm-hmm.
Because they actually, instead of killing them on the first time, they had sex multiple times.
Ooh, yes.
You know what's odd, though? I came over here to this table because I want to add this. It's like he wants the warm meat. He wants it to feel like, just get a fucking pocket pussy.
Yeah, put it in the microwave for 6.7 seconds. Like, come on, man.
Like warm up some lubrication, shove it in your pocket pussy, and you'd probably be all right. That was just my one.
I feel
like
not Ron Swanson, Nick Offerman. He has a joke in one of his comedy stand-up specials where he's like, well, if you're going to drill a hole into a melon and then fuck it, at least make sure you put a 45-degree camphor around the edge so that you're not slicing your ween.
So we get some flack on these sometimes about misinformation. So correct me if I'm wrong with this, anybody listening. I believe Hughes actually played kind of hard to get at first. When they first met at the club, Hughes actually turned him down going home with him. And then they met up a second or third time, and that's when it seemed like more of a relationship. So maybe it seemed like a game for Dahmer.
Yeah. Yeah, where he had like not wanting to ever be told no in the first place, but the fact that he was like, yeah, exactly. It's the thrill of the chase. Like so determined to be like, well, we should just go back to my place. No? Well, what if I give you money and you pose for photos? Okay. Like he's always just trying to find that line.
Well, being an aspiring actor back then.
Yeah, totally. Like, of course you want like if you have good headshots taken by someone, you're like, yeah, maybe I'll suck a dick. Maybe I'll get like an Oscar-winning fucking portrait out of it. Like,
Buy the
who knows?
camera.
Yeah, I'm not camera shy.
So this is where things,
Get
especially in Monster,
Mm-hmm.
take a very, very wrong turn. I'm not going to say the last name again because I'm going to butcher the hell out of it. His name was Conrad.
I've got a nope. God damn it. I was so confident going into that. I was like, I got hooked on phonics. I fucking got this. No.
So this was Sonrak. He was 14 years old, and this was May 27th of 1991. What's weird about this is there's some inconsistencies in the stories, so I don't think we're ever going to know 100%.
No.
But his brother was actually Somsak that got sexually assaulted
in
by
98. Yeah.
Yes, multiple years earlier. Some think he knew about his brother, but it's not verified. The ones that think he knew about it are saying that he felt like if he went there and blackmailed him, he could get money for his family that was struggling.
Yeah.
So, like some of the other ones that have happened here recently, Dahmer tried to lobotomize him by drilling a hole in his skull while he was unconscious. Somehow, he luckily escaped, but police found him outside of his apartment building.
And there was a bunch of 911 calls about him being outside.
Because I believe the neighbor actually heard screaming and called the cops. So cops were on their way.
And then there was two younger girls outside.
Yes.
Called 911.
But when police came back, they weren't sure what was going on. They returned him to Dahmer.
Yep.
And Dahmer was able to convince the police it was his lover. They had gotten a drunken fight and that nothing was going to happen. And they just,
hey, officer, how you doing? Sorry about the blood running down the skull.
Right. Yeah, don't worry about that. That's totally unrelated.
Like, dude had a hole in his head.
Yeah. One of the things that, like, Dahmer moving into this apartment too, his neighbors repeatedly filed complaints to the property manager with, like, about foul smells, sounds of falling objects, occasional sounds of chainsaws. And they were like, this is a problem. And Dahmer just always had an excuse. One of them was his freezer broke. And so all of the stuff inside became spoiled. And that's what the smell of gross rotting meat was coming from. Another reason was
the rotting, flesh of a human thigh.
Yeah. Well, and like, if your freezer breaks, don't fucking open it.
Yeah.
Like, why does he just have it like
or just don't kill and butcher bodies, human bodies?
Yeah. Or just maybe don't do that. Or get a better freezer. And another one was he said that he had a fish tank of tropical fish that ended up all dying, but he would take care of the issue like as soon as he could. He's like, I know it's so smelly, sorry. These fucking fancy ass fish. Like,
I got the pH level wrong.
Yeah.
But
we all know about that.
With Conrack, this is where Dahmer started, or he bought a 57-gallon barrel and started storing body parts in the acid in the barrel.
Yeah. Oh, one of the things, my sister just got home, so now she's able to comment. But the homophobia at that time was so real, like, beyond just like don't ask, don't tell, but like, oh, is this gay shit? Cool, I don't want to touch it.
Well, that's exactly what Big Easy just said. He said Dahmer living in a predominantly black neighborhood helped him during the times because the cops saw him as a white guy above the others against black gays.
Yeah. And Big Easy just said during the AIDS epidemic too, like there was almost this like leper kind of rejection of people who were perceived to be gay. And so like, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to catch it. There was this that's why Princess Diana like doing all of her AIDS efforts and actually
I
touching.
do also.
people.
Sorry, I
Oh
want to
no,
ask
you're good.
the police officers that were there that night. So I believe there was an investigation, and I just read this. This could be. Hopefully, this isn't wrong. It's just multiple sources that we read earlier say that the cops were kind of like investigated from this one, and
sure they were
nothing.
after.
They were completely found. They did their job. No
Mhm.
issues.
Tick.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah, they're like, nope, we checked the boxes.
Hey,
Don't
look,
even
it's a
worry
black-
about it.
But in their mind, it was a black gay guy, so we don't give a shit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what that was what was going through their head at that moment,
Oh,
Mhm.
which
100%.
is sad.
So
And-
after that, or
Yeah.
go ahead, Michaela.
Oh, I was gonna say the other thing is like he was obviously underage too. So like
Right.
why like beyond just like I don't want to deal with that, but like a literal fucking child is apparently with blood coming out of a hole in his skull, naked and screaming and scared, is like outside, and this one white dude is just like, nah, it's fine. I'll
And
just
that's
take him
what your
back
sister
inside.
just
Sorry
hit
about
him.
it. Yeah.
But what I was saying, like, I actually have this written up. You guys are like hitting so many great topics that are in my script, so I'm super proud of you guys. But that was so. What happened was, if they at first were investigated, they were found no wrongdoing, and then I thought they were put on like administrative leave, and then eventually, out of all of this, they got their jobs back
And all the money.
Mhm.
and their money. I didn't know that, but so according to some sources, they got their money back. They were back paid. This is ridiculous. This is what's wrong with situations. This right here is still could be it still happens today.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt you guys.
All right.
Oh no,
so,
you're right. We're
Michaela, you want
interrupting
to
each
talk
other
about
all over.
Matt Turner?
Yeah. So towards the end of June, Dahmer traveled to Chicago and he met Matt Turner at a bus station during Chicago Pride.
And isn't Chicago Pride like one of the biggest in the United States?
It's a bigums. Like San Francisco, Chicago, New York, I'd say Portland, but like we're kind of tiny for a big city. But like there are really like Chicago has such a huge and important place in like Pride history. So despite him kind of being a self-hating homosexual, obviously because he killed so many of his lovers, partners, he decided to go to Chicago to go to the Pride celebration. And he met Matt Turner and he offered to give him a professional photo shoot. Apparently, if you have a Polaroid and $50, you can just like lure people back to your fucking apartment and then
I
murder
was about
them.
to say, it was
Like
always
it's always to be like, hey, can I take slightly suggestive photos of you and then also pump hydrochloric acid into your fucking brain?
Can I be honest though, Michaela?
Yes.
Like, don't get upset. Don't judge me. But Austin hit on the nail earlier. Told
Mhm.
back a bush in a 20.
Yeah.
He said 10.
Honestly,
Yeah,
I've done
I'm
worse
there.
for less. So like
Yeah.
there's
Like,
no judgment here.
12 pack of Busch Lights and a $20 bill. Sturgis there. Taking my chances.
You got a joint and a fifth? Like
Yeah, like
rock and roll, whatever.
this
You
sounds
only
like an
live
amazing
once.
time, Dahmer. I'll be there.
So he
As long
actually
as you
got,
bring the sorry, go ahead.
got Matt to go back to his place in Milwaukee, right?
Yes, sorry. So he ended up like meeting him in Chicago and Turner agreed to follow him back to Milwaukee, where at his apartment with multiple smell citations issues. I don't know. What do property managers do?
Well, they just say you stink, motherfucker. So
Yeah, fucking shower, bitch.
yeah.
But he ended up dragging him, strangling, and dismembering him. He kept his head, obviously, but he also this time took his internal organs and he put them in what I'm imagining is Tupperware. And I'm trying really hard not to think about all of the Tupperware in my freezer when I talk about this, but he kept it all in separate plastic bags in the freezer, and Matt Turner was never reported missing.
Mm.
And then, like, not even a week later, he ended up luring, like, another person, Jeremiah Weinberger, from a Chicago bar to his apartment in Milwaukee. Chicago to Milwaukee. That is a fucking jaunt for a booty call.
Yeah.
Like, the charisma of this person, like, that's what's so crazy. It's like someone who possesses zero empathy for other human beings and yet can manipulate people who do have feelings and empathy, can manipulate them to the point of like, yeah, sure, that's a quick jaunt. Chicago to Milwaukee. Yeah, I'll go take some photos with you there. Like,
well, so what was weird
impossible.
for me about this Jeremiah guy
Mhm.
is, from what I read and everything, was they had a great night together. There was some oral sex and everything, some pictures taken.
That's a great night, of course. There was
And-
oral
and-
sex involved.
And then the second night, the guy felt weird. So he tried to leave. And that's when Dahmer, again, killed him, drilled a hole in his head. Instead of acid this time, he poured boiling water in it.
Yeah.
I think here, Megan Stinson, is that your sister?
Yeah, it's my sister.
Okay, can we get her on a Friday night Sip and Solve too?
Oh, yes. She's like
let-
a little bit kind of camera shy, but like this is
Okay,
her
she doesn't have
field
to
of
show her face. She
expertise.
can just be. She can be a video, or
Yeah.
just
The
a
voice.
voice. But hear me out for a second. I think what she is saying. You said the first night they had a good time, right?
Yeah.
And then they stayed over, and we've all been in this situation. Like, it was a good time, but I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But I think she puts this in perspective. Also, part of the why he did the acid wasn't sex related. Some of it was because he knew the person would never leave. It was
Mhm.
part of the abandonment issues. And I think that's something that we really need to hit on.
Yeah.
He felt the abandonment from his mom, his dad. Remember, he's in high school, abandoned, living there by himself. And so Megan really hits this right there, man.
Yeah.
It's, he finally finds a guy that's staying overnight. As far as we know, that's the first one that ever did, right?
No. Anthony
Her-
Hughes, it is believed that they formed some kind of relationship. And there
Is
was,
that before this one?
yes, it was,
Okay.
there was multiple encounters between each other. So it wasn't the first night they met that he killed him.
But again, maybe it was that.
It wasn't a common thing, though.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was my bad. I apologize. But I still believe that Megan's on that right spot there, that abandonment. If, I drill the hole in there, I put the acid in there, I can make them into a zombie, control what they do.
Yeah.
It's kind of, if you think about it, which I might get slack for this, which is fine, kind of sad. It's kind of
No, it is super sad to have to go to the lengths that he is, to feel like that is necessary
Yeah.
to have someone
Yeah.
in your life that permanently, like, people have left you by the wayside at every point in your life, to the point where you're like, I just need one person to be here for me. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to drill a hole in their skull and pump acid into it.
And it seems like a super crazy shit, but in his mind,
It
What?
made sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
it made the sense, and it's sad. Go ahead, Dylan. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Something.
No, you guys are hitting good points here. We have a commenter here. It's from Canada's Dark Haunted History. Hello from Canada, new
Hi,
subscriber here.
Canada.
Hey,
How's it going,
Dark Haunted
Canada?
History, what's up, bro? Or is it a broette? Who knows?
We
You
don't know.
Mm.
Love it all.
So
What up,
after
Brendo?
we have Oliver Lacey, it was just 10 days after. It seems like Dahmer's thirst to kill just kept growing and
100%.
growing because he kept doing them more frequently.
Serial killers kind of have that spiral of like,
yeah, needing more.
they get the first one and then they have that like mental kind of experience, and then they keep chasing that high. It's like it's chasing the dragon. It's part of why like drugs are so addictive. Like they're always chasing to find and re-experience the feeling of that first kill. And when they don't get it time and time again, then it starts coming faster and faster and faster. Like they're in a depression spiral because they're sad that they can't feel that thing again. And especially psychopaths like sociopaths, they don't feel a lot of things.
That's right.
So the first time they kill someone, like they feel a lot of things, like the adrenaline, the power, like the feeling of control. And the more that they hone their craft, the less that kind of like thrill of, I guess, like, or excitement comes in because they know what they're going to do. It's almost like a job. So they have to keep searching for ways to get that like dopamine rush in increasingly more depraved ways or just more quickly.
Yeah. And just to let everybody know, our friend from Canada is a bro.
It is.
What's up, bro?
What's up, bro?
So there wasn't much. Well, there was a little bit about Oliver. He was a father to a little boy. Dahmer offered to pay him money for photographs. I'm guessing $50.
It's always $50.
Yeah, he drugged and strangled Lacey, and then Dahmer had sex with his lifeless body. What took a turn on this one is he cut off his hands and cut out his heart. He kept his hands in the freezer and kept his heart to eat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on that one, MyKala?
Well, yeah, MyKala, go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just curious how he cooked it.
Probably did.
Medium rare. Oh, actually, okay. I know this is really gross, but like heart is a really tough muscle, so probably braised.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd say slow cook, pressure cook.
You know, I would ask him, but he's dead, right? So
yeah. Not saying I would ever eat a heart, but I mean, maybe a beef heart.
Deer
That's
heart
how
is
I would.
pretty good.
That's how I would prepare a beef heart.
Yeah, exactly.
So we had a good comment here from Gordon before we hit the last person. He said, and this is a very good one, unlike other serial killers, he never taunted the police into trying to find him.
So I wanted to hit on this. We looked at, MyKala said something about how serial killers, you know, that spiral, that out of control, right? We did podcasts on Israel Keys. Israel Keys got away with murder all over the United States. So he would like drive around, he would fly over the United States, bury kill kits, and then go back 10 years later, unbury it, and then go kill somebody.
But he got bored.
He got super bored, right? And so he decided to do it in his hometown. He did it where there was a bunch of cameras. He knew there was a bunch of cameras, kidnapped a girl out of a food truck coffee shop. And so you're so right. The thrill only lasts so long until you have to try to make mistakes to see if you're better and smarter than people.
Correct me if I'm wrong with Keys. Not trying to change the subject.
We're not. We're just comparing.
Keys got so bored that he did this in public around cameras.
Yes.
And then took her debit card and smiled in the camera to get caught.
In a different state. Yep. He literally, you know, so
just like me.
Yeah. And so Dylan, was that the last?
No, I think MyKala is going to hit on the last guy.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes. So for his last, I guess, foray into Murder Town, he ended up approaching a group of 3 men. This time he doubled it. It was $100. But he asked them to go to his apartment to pose for nude photos, drink beer, and just keep him company. Like, it's just a little friend. It's just it's a sip and solve. It's a little happy hour, but without the happy. Only one of the 3 men, Tracy Edwards, agreed eventually to go back with him to his apartment. As soon as Edwards entered, he noticed the smell that Dahmer's neighbors had been complaining of. And also, he just had several boxes of hydrochloric acid strewn about his apartment. Not even trying to hide it. Just like, yeah, no, I just like it for cleaning. Yeah, like I just want to clean bricks, man.
Little did he know I've killed 4 people within 15 days. Like,
Yeah. Don't even worry about the smell. It's definitely not from
My
body
fish,
dissolving in
my
my
fish
fucking.
died.
Bleh.
Well, I think the crazy part of that is when that cop, they're all they were at that time, all they were worried about was getting him out of the handcuffs. Because if you remember, he has handcuffs on him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, MyKala, am I wrong that the way they entered his apartment was to get handcuff key, right?
Yeah. So
What a dumb Dahmer.
dumb Dahmer.
Nickname.
Yeah. The triple D. Oh wait, no. Wait, I was like, wait, I think that's diners, drive-ins, and dives. Guy Fieri might come after me if I try and name him the triple D.
I said we just call him dumb Dahmer.
Just the dumber. The dumber.
Dumb.
It's crazy though, because you would think, because I think he kind of was intelligent. I mean, you can't be stupid and get away with murder this long, right?
Yeah. Like,
Right.
But you let the cops in there and could you imagine what's going through his brain?
At this point,
hydrochloric acid, maybe.
At this point, I think he was so comfortable with not getting caught that he didn't think twice about it. He thought they're just going to come in, do this, and leave.
So what got him caught?
Well, I was going to say, like, it might also be, it could be that he was really confident and self-assured, but he also had, like, borderline personality disorder, like, all of these other things. So he could have just been so deep in his psychosis that he could not understand the consequences or ramifications of, like, letting cops into his apartment. Like, it was just, like, yeah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Right.
he just might not have understood what was happening.
He's probably hammered drunk, right?
Yeah, and also just fucking wasted.
Yeah.
So, Edwards is in his apartment. The tropical fish, which he apparently, like, he had his tank of tropical fish. They just weren't dead, which was not the smell. But he put a handcuff on him, and Edwards, Tracy, saw all of these, like, nude photographs on his walls. And then also, we've all seen it, the blue 57-gallon drums.
That people
totally not. Yeah, I was like, used for much less nefarious fucking purposes in my industry, at least.
They're not that bad.
Yeah, I was like, the sketchiest drum that I have at my distillery is a vat of, like, hydrogen peroxide.
So what we call it here in the studio, if we have a blue drum with match, and we call the Dahmer barrel.
The Dahmer drum.
We don't. But
I'm just saying, it'd be funny if we did now. It's not funny.
Oh.
It's kind of sad, but
No, I know. Like, we laugh and jest, but, like, not in any way to disrespect
no, absolutely fucking
the trauma that this, like, has caused people. But we're also dark and twisted fucking people, and we need to laugh at the fucked up stuff in our life. So we're gonna laugh at fucked up stuff in other people's lives too.
Kayla, you're hired.
Yeah, I thought so.
So this leads into when he was arrested. I want to let you guys take over that.
Well, so what I want to do is, here's a good question. What drove Dahmer to kill? He later confesses that he felt a compulsion, maybe like a possession. Mm-hmm. And I think your sister even said, or Gordon, both of them maybe, he wanted to possess the victims completely, stemming from his feelings of, powerlessness or abandonment or deep, just deep-seated isolation. It's deep in his soul, right? And Dahmer's murders were not just an act of violence, guys. They were an attempt to create a sense of control over his life, right? And other people. Because let's be honest, he did have a shit life. So let me take control of it. He wanted to have his victims remain with him, even when they were dead. Okay, he wanted that sense of control. And over the next 13 years, you just heard it, guys, Dahmer would go on to, commit 16 murders of, young men, primarily targeting individuals within the LGBTQ plus community. It's heartbreaking. His methods varied often. You just heard it, from drugging them, strangulation, dismemberment. Dahmer's later murders that you heard were, marked by even darker twists, necrophilia, cannibalism. He would sometimes consume parts of the victims, believing that this would create an everlasting bond. And Dahmer's approach was methodological. I mean, he would often lure these victims, as you heard, to his home with these promises, right, for the money. Dylan, MyKala, you said that the $50 or the companionship, a friendship.
Yeah.
Once they were there, he would use those drugs, and you guys just heard 17
Yeah, 17.
stories of Jeffrey Dahmer doing exactly that, using the drugs, and it's horrible. We make some funnies here and there, but when it comes down to it, this shit is so horrific and so sad, and especially for the victims. Listen, they deserve everything that we have to offer them, and I don't know what that is. It's sad because they were taken way too soon.
I think one of the kind of like at the same time scariest and also saddest parts is because of when he was going through these like murder sprees, kind of like Gordon touched on, like during the height of the AIDS crisis, where like touching a gay person was tantamount to like catching leprosy.
Right.
Like he felt so disenfranchised from the general human populace, and he tried to find other people who also felt othered, who also felt like they were disconnected from the general populace, who also felt like they like that. I joke about like $50 and some nude photos, but like that's more than a lot of people in the LGBTQ community like were ever offered. Like the fact that he just talked with them, the fact that he like wanted to like celebrate them, like the celebration or the acknowledgement of gay people at that time was so.
But where he
down.
was, where he lived, that's why. Listen, guys, he struggled. I think a lot of this has to stream back to the fact that he was gay. He was, and he didn't want to be gay because the one woman he trusted was
his
a
grandma,
strict Christian, right? A church going woman. And at that time, if you were a Christian, this was off the table. You can't be gay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just can't be. At this time, it's sad to think that, guys. And I'm sorry to the community because it's so fucking wrong, right? But so what did he do? He moved into the community, a place, was it Milwaukee, right? A place where it was a thriving, there was a lot of clubs there. And I think, did he do the killings to try to get it out of himself? Was he trying to, do it? It's just so, I don't think the world did him any favor at this time because
no,
it was hard to deal with this, feeling of being gay at the time. And it's really fucking sad.
Yeah. Like a culmination of having these mental disorders that already other you, also having unavailable, unsympathetic, absentee parents.
Yeah.
And the one person that you do love and respect in whatever fucked up way he could do that is someone who consistently goes to a church that tells you that how you feel is wrong and you're going to burn in hell for it.
And you look
at the
now,
one avenue of like acceptance and love. And
well, and I think MyKala, if you remember right, did his grandma, I believe, found was it a mannequin? I believe.
Yeah, like or like a mannequin or like a sewing.
Yeah, like a male
like
part,
a dress form.
trash, and he was so upset, and it's like, well, because behind closed doors he could pretend, right? He could pretend it was a real man and give the loving feelings that he wanted to do. Now, one of the most disturbing aspects, I think, of Dahmer's crimes was, how he would often preserve these body parts. He kept those skulls. You guys talked about it. He kept the skeletons. Were they trophies, or was it the fact that he just really wanted these people with him? He even attempted to create those zombies, right? You were talking about Was it 2 different guys that he tried to?
It was multiple
ones where he
yeah.
tried to drill the holes and create that zombie life because he didn't want him to leave. He wanted to love
Yeah.
a man. He didn't want him to leave. He wanted to be isolated with him. And Dahmer's murders were characterized by a disturbing pattern. He would often, engage in acts of that necrophilia and that attempt to contain control. And, it's he did. If you go look at the trial and what he says in interviews afterwards, he does. He did actually show remorse. He had guilt, but that didn't matter to him because he was unable to stop these compulsive behaviors, anyways. So, what can we say about these things?
This is one of those cases. There's really not much you can say.
Yeah, because it's one thing to have empathy for someone who has had continual and systematic oppression from like places that should have been supportive, but
Yeah.
and not even to like make it about me, but like I had a hard childhood. Like my mom fucking sucks, but like
Yeah.
I learned how to like get past that. It took into my 30s. It took a long fucking time to dismantle all of that stuff, but because I didn't have the depth of psychosis that he did, like he didn't have much of a chance because of what he was already going to deal with just because of his brain chemistry, like his nature, but then the nurture, the like environmental aspect of it just fueled him into like spiraling this bad.
Yeah. And it is heartbreaking. This is really, really heartbreaking because at this time, I don't think, and I don't know for sure because I didn't do the research on the mental illness part of things, but he clearly had mental illness. He clearly had the abandonment issues, and and part of that, 17 men lost their lives.
I know of.
That we know of.
That we know of.
And go ahead, MyKala.
Oh yeah. So he was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, schizotypal personality disorder, and a psychotic disorder.
Yeah.
So like there was not a time in his brain where reality was ever experienced in the truest sense.
Yeah. And listen,
everything.
we have a lot of sick puppies that listen to our podcast, but I do want to highlight Big Easy's comment here if you can pull it up.
Mhm.
After Dahmer said tattoos make the meat taste terrible, he got covered in tattoos. So nobody.
See, that's what I'm saying. I just don't want to be like I'm a snack, but I don't want to be the whole ass meal.
Yeah.
We all got it.
I'm right there.
We got
too.
the anti-Dahmer.
As long as you don't show me, he can eat me. Just don't put me in the trunk. So
I don't want to
that's
be in
my
the
biggest
trunk.
fear in literally life. The boys will tell you. Dahmer's legacy is one of horror and fascination. Let's be honest. We're covering this case today because why? It's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It's horrific, but it's fascinating. His stories raises a complex question about the nature of evil, right? Evil and mental illness and the, social factors that contribute to such horrific crimes. The chilling details of his life and crime continues to haunt us. We're talking about it today. It's serving as a reminder of the darkness that can reside in the human psyche. I mean, to me, it's crazy to think that these people are still here, and what can we do to prevent such tragedies? I mean, what is your guys' thoughts?
Well, I think one of social media in general has kind of been like a bane on the human experience, but I will say one of the things that I think has been a benefit is the ability of people who feel like they don't have anyone else who has experienced what they are experiencing, like can find people who actually are. Because some of these really crucial and terrible mental disorders, they're 1 in 1,000, 1 in a million. So no one that you interact with in your sphere, if you are experiencing these disorders, you're not more than likely going to know someone face to face who is going through what you are going through. But with the internet and people being willing to share some of these vulnerable aspects of themselves, they're able to reach out to other people who can understand, who have maybe been able to, I guess, surpass or circumvent some of the worst aspects of their disorders. The connectivity of the internet age, I think, can be used for good. It just is a shame that so much of it isn't.
Yeah, I agree.
Not to get on my soapbox, but like, yeah,
Get on
the
your
fact
box,
that you
bro.
can talk with people across the world who can understand what you're going through, even though you're not in the same time zone, like you don't share the same language, like translate apps, all of this, like it is a wonderful thing to be able to connect with the people that you need to connect with. And I think it's a way of building a community, building your village to be able to get through life.
Yeah. What do you think, Dylan?
No, that was spot on. there, there's nothing else that needs to be said there.
I agree. And, the questions that kind of go through my brain when I think about Jeffrey Dahmer, I wonder, did he kill because he wanted to get that urge and the fact that he didn't want to tell people that he was gay. And so he tried to get that urge off of his brain. Did he do it because he wanted to prey on black people? He moved in that neighborhood.
Mhm.
And so was he racist? Was that why he did it? I don't know. I don't think so, but it could have been. Was
Yeah.
he, why was he preying on, I mean, weren't they,
I mean,
Muslim?
that might have been
Yeah.
like, that also could have been his way of taunting the police, or at least
Yeah.
trying to shove their nose in it. Because someone brought up, like, it's weird that he never, like, tried to contact the authorities or any media outlets.
Right.
Oftentimes, like, I think there are, like, 2 main types of serial killers. Like, they're the sensationalists who need the attention and the validation, or they're the compulsionists, like people who need to do a thing because of reasons.
Yeah.
I feel like Dahmer might have been more on the compulsory side of it because he had this like self-hatred for being gay, being abandoned, all of these things. Like he still was an absolutely like vile human being and was a like scorn on the earth. But
Yeah.
could he have been different if circumstances had changed?
I would say yes. I would say yes. I mean, guys, when we think about it, what would have happened if he had the right childhood?
Right.
Mhm. A
But
fucking therapist.
a
Like,
fucking therapist, yeah, like
A dad that was there.
a dad, a mom that
a
wasn't
mom. Yeah.
just gonna just take their other son and leave because they didn't want to deal with him.
Someone who cared about him, who also didn't belong to a community that hated his existence,
Yeah,
that
and
thought he was a sinner.
hey, guys, and that's exactly right. And I personally believe in God and Jesus. And I consider myself a Christian, but my belief has nowhere fucking close to what the beliefs were back then from this family.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
you're gay,
Like,
you're
it
bigger
was
than.
all
Come
scorched
on.
earth, brimstone, and fire.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
if you see Jesus's best friends, they were all. I mean, they were considered hellions back then. So it's. I mean, do your research and come back at me later because it was so wrong. And I do think, mental health is
Mhm.
huge in this case. And I want people to know if you're listening to this and you're dealing with that sense of that nobody loves you, or you feel depressed, or you feel that anxiety or those panic attacks, and you don't think there's anyone out there that understands, you don't think there's anyone out there that loves you, you don't think there's anyone out there that you can talk to, I promise you people do love you. There's people out there worth talking to, and there's
Mhm.
therapists, there's friends, there's family. You are not alone. I know I've been there, Dylan. We've talked. I know you've been there. MyKala, I don't know your past, but
Yeah, you're right.
you reach the fuck out. You reach out to your
Mhm.
people and tell them how I just did it last night, did I not?
Yeah.
I texted Fred and Dylan because I had a rough night last night, and my
Mhm.
boys were there, and it was beautiful. It really was, because when you talk to somebody that loves you and you talk to somebody that really wants you to succeed in life and be fucking okay,
Mhm.
that goes a long way, guys. So
And I think another thing is, like, being able to find those people when you reach out, like, it's okay to not be okay.
yeah,
Like, you can
100%.
say, you can act, you can be in the depths of your kind of mental situation, and you will do and say things that you would never do or say under normal circumstances, but there are people who will love you and will say it like, it's okay. It's okay. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has moments of strife, of vulnerability, of extreme stress, and no person can fully understand exactly what they're going to do when they're under those circumstances, but there are people who will say it's okay. Like I am,
Yeah.
like, even if they don't understand, they still accept you. They still love you because they know that your actions in those moments of disassociation, of like being in the depths, like, that's not you. Your disorders are not you.
You
You
know,
learn to live with them, but they are not you. You are not defined by your worst moments.
And I think you just answered Chris's question to a T. He said, do you think he felt unaccepted because he was gay? At the end of the day, I think if he would have just came out, his family would have still loved him.
that's hard to tell, dude.
Uh,
They were so
yeah,
different,
honest,
man. I
I
agree.
I would hope. So, even if his blood family didn't love him, he
If
had
you
an opportunity to have a found family that would. Like, the thing the fact that even for $50 and, like, posing for nude photos, nobody was like, "Fuck yeah, I'm making a quick buck." Like, that was just the guise under which, like, they were like, "Yes, I would also like to just hang out with another gay person." I
Yeah,
guess we kind of need to make it about the money and the photos, but, like, I just wanna spend time with someone who understands an aspect of myself that I can't, at that point in time, actually just ask for.
Michaela, I think what you hit on too. Sorry. So you kind of fucked me up with one of your comments, like, because it resonated with me. You said a really good comment, man. God, fuck. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's
I have a
okay.
sticker on my laptop that says that it's okay to not be okay, and it's
Fuck.
something that I tell myself every day.
Is it not? That's so true. And you know, at times you're gonna feel like you're alone, and you're gonna feel, whether it's because you're gay and you're hiding it right now because you don't know what to do. It's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel not fucking okay. It's okay to
Mhm,
feel these feelings, but
mhm.
know that you're not alone. You're not the only, person out there going through the situation you're going through. There's people that
Yeah.
have already been through it for years, right? So,
Mhm.
and that's why it's so important to reach out to those people. Dylan, Fred, I didn't have to reach out to you last night, but I knew I needed to because I wasn't in an okay place. I was really upset. Dylan, you can, right?
yeah.
I mean, I text you, I one of my sentences I said, I'm not okay right now. And that's okay.
And that's okay. I love that you were able to, like, that you've identified your family, like, your people who you can have that moment of vulnerability with, because not only is it okay to not be okay, but, like, it's okay to not be a good person in those moments. Like,
Oh,
sometimes it's
absolutely.
really fucking tough. Sometimes you
I
are
got
going to
you.
have, like, aggressive, uncomfortable, fucking angry feelings.
Yeah.
And just saying them, stating them, and then working through those with people who are going to be okay with you at the end of the day, like, the breadth of like human emotion and what we experience as being meat sacks on this planet. Like
Yeah.
it fucking sucks being a human being sometimes. But like if we all just help each other a little bit, it sucks that much less.
Yeah, and I think MyKala and Megan, you just hit it. Your sisters, I mean, fuck, she's got to get on this show.
Yeah.
Reaching out is fine too. It's not just it's fine. It's a tool. Reaching out is a tool, right?
Yeah.
Last night I could have just sunk in my sorrows and just fucking been depressed and not been okay today. But I sat down in my studio and I thought to myself, I'm gonna text the two people that I know that will understand me, and they're gonna literally text me back. You know what Dylan's simple response was? Dude, I love you, and I'm here. That's all the fuck I needed to hear, right? Fred, he sent me 4 songs to listen to because I'm a write songs, and so it resonates with me. He sent me 4 songs to listen to. By the time I woke up the next day, feeling fucking great, right? I'm not cutting penises off and put people in fucking barrels.
Rasputin in skulls and cabinets. Like, I don't have a curio of studios.
So, guys, anybody listening to this was a deep, deep, deep episode. I mean, we're talking, anytime you cut a heart out of a human being and decide to eat it, you're sicko. But I think we take a lot from them.
Yeah. And like, what about because the act of like cutting the heart out and eating it, like, does it mean that you feel like you don't have a heart? So you're trying to like
some type of symbol, like that's
it's a projection for sure in a way, but also like, yeah, man, like I'm just
it's deep, girl. It's
as fucked up as I am. Like I'm glad I just never fucking went over that ledge.
Dylan will tell you I'm fucked up. Like I love true crime. I love talking this stuff. Before this podcast ever came, I had my own podcast. I did it by myself. It was called Reviewing Report, and I dive into this shit. And it's because I'm so obsessed with, what other people feel. I mean, honestly, guys, how far are you? How many ticking time bombs out there are there? How close are you just to destruction? And what can we do to prevent that? And that's what really brings me to this. I mean, these chilling details of Dahmer's life and the crimes, they're going to haunt us, right? It serves as a reminder of the darkness. Right. That was what I said. And I will keep that I say it every episode, that same sentence, because it is dark. It is scary. It is, I'm sorry, preventable.
Yeah. Like,
it is preventable.
There is, I feel like, an inherent kind of disposition towards being able to do these acts of violence, but so much of the, like, what spurs them on, what is the catalyst of that tipping point is outside and exterior like stimuli. Like they have the potential in them, but it's something outside of them that is the tipping point that pushes them to that point.
Just listening to MyKala talk tonight, I've realized she's the freaking brain to our pinky.
Oh, for sure.
Well, we're going to take over the world.
I'm going to tell you right now, before we end, MyKala, stay on here because even when we end, we can chat for a minute. But Friday, hopefully we can get the crew back in here. I'd love to get MyKala, get you back on with Megan. I've got a case that we can talk about when we get off air here. But I want to thank everybody for joining, American Whiskey Sip and Solve. Peanut's on his way to Tennessee to visit family with our producer, Levi. So MyKala,
safe travels, Peanut.
He's in the comments and we love him, but it was really fun to have you on here. Hopefully we can, I'm just going to say Megan and MyKala, hopefully we can get you on Friday, make this kind of something really fun to do a couple times. But I want to thank you for getting on here. It was awesome. But if you guys, absolutely. If you found this episode intriguing, go subscribe. It sounds like we got a new listener from Canada tonight.
Yay! Canada
subscribe. Yes, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this chilling case. Join us next time as we explore, the captivating story of American history, the part that people don't want to talk about. But until then, sip responsibly and stay curious. I'm Big Sturge.
Use 2 hands for
Justice
safety.
League.
And you are?
Oh, I'm MyKala Stinson. I make alcohol and also have opinions on things.
And she's also a true crime mastermind. And we are.
And also, I really,
whiskey.
Go ahead.
I like thinking about human brains,
Same.
but not in jars, not in jars or in cabinets. Just to be clear.
Listen.
Just to be clear.
Stay tuned for next Friday. We may have something very interesting with you. So on 3, I say we all say American whiskey. All right. 1, 2, 3. We are American whiskey.
Whiskey.
Peace out. Love you guys.